Good afternoon and welcome to the Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority Board meeting of November 26th. If everyone would please rise and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So that, would you please call the roll?
Paul Anthony.
Here.
Ann Baum.
Here.
Robert Brooks. Frank Fasciano.
Here.
Don Gottschall.
Here.
Ricky Gower.
Here.
Justin Grimshaw.
Here.
John Hayes.
Here.
Ron Heckman. Larry Hemberger.
Here.
James Irwin.
Here.
Glenn Riebman.
Present.
Mike Stershik.
Here.
Jonathan Strauss. Chris Worley. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Service award, Todd.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we wind down the end of 2024, there's always the potential to see members of our Board of Governors whose terms are expiring, and this year is no exception. And we have a member who's been on our board since 2015. I think he's been referred to as the board historian by some members. So I'd like to ask Larry Hemberger to come forward and accept an award on the behalf of the board and staff for his time served on the Board of Governors. So Larry. I think Sylvette wants to take a picture, so we're gonna, okay, and I'll set this over here for you. And I don't know if you wanted to say a few words or.
You never want to put a sales guy with a microphone in a captive audience. Of course I like to say something. This is a little different. We're breaking policy a little bit. Normally this would happen. The person was rolling off would come in and get their plaque and go out the door, and we'd never see them again or hear anything about them. So I just found that we could change that a little bit and let me say goodbye to everybody. There's still time left on my term. I'm not done till the first of the year. But that's where it kind of starts. Tom said we could check into a couple of things and see if we could do that, and obviously that happened because here I am. He was very helpful. I asked him if he might be able to tell me a little bit about the history of the board and whatever. And I found out that I've lived a lot of the board, and it's been exciting. It's been an exciting time. But I've worked with a cast of people over the years that's been unbelievable. Some of them are on the board, some of them aren't. But just a quick snapshot of some of the people that have come through while I've been on the board for 10 years. This isn't everybody, but it's some of the cast of characters. Right, Justin? I won't go through every name, but just some names: James Baker, Ann Baum, Bill Berger, Tony Boyle, Dean Browning, Bert Day. Reminds me of the story. I came here in 1992, representing Delta Airlines. I was the director of sales and marketing, and we thought it'd be a good idea to take all the dignitaries down to Atlanta via flight, introduce them to the Delta service, airport, just have a grand old time. So we made arrangements to have limousines pick people up from this board to go down to Atlanta. And we're in Atlanta, we're downtown, it's hot. We get a message, there weren't any cell phones in those days, that the limousines had broken down. And there was one guy giving the driver the devil, and it just carried on. So they come back. It's Bert Data who was giving everybody the hard time. But it's been a great run, and I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for allowing me to be part of this. You realize as you get into it a little more, some of the decisions we're making are going to affect not only the airport, but the valley at large for a long, long time, and maybe infinity in some areas, but at any rate, before I go, Tom, I just want to say, because of your guidance and your direction, the entire board and the entire organization is headed in the right direction. Um, it's gonna, it's bearing fruit, and it's been a pleasure to work with that. I want to tell you a little story though before I go. Even though there's 20 years difference in the age between Tom and I, he knows that I enjoy my outdoor events. And so he invites me to go ice fishing. I said, wow, that's cool. I've never been ice fishing before. I will never, ever do that again. It took us 12 hours to dig a hole big enough in the ice to get the boat in the water. Takes a while. Takes a while. But he had me go ice fishing one other time, and we go out there, and this time we got it right. We're chipping the ice, and all of a sudden we hear this big voice that says, "There's no fish under that ice." I said, "You get it?" "Yeah, I hear it." We kept chopping away. We hear, "There are no fish under that ice." Tom, being a God-fearing man, says, "God, is that you?" He says, "No, it's the manager, and the rink is closed."
Thank you, Larry.
Sylvette, do we have any public comment?
We do not, sir.
Okay. I will take a motion for approval of the minutes of the October 29th, 2024 board meeting. John, second. Frank, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of October 29th? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Frank, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, Todd, we're going to turn it over to you. Regarding the 2024 financial report, October.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully everyone's enjoying a nice meal that's kind of put together there for everybody. Obviously, the pumpkin pie's looking good there for you.
It's pretty good.
All right. We're going to go to the financials. We had a good month. We talked about this yesterday. We had a good month in October. Down a little bit from last year, but all things considered, a pretty good month considering we had 22 canceled flights and still up even versus 19. Obviously, last year in October was a really good month as far as traffic. Comparing us to our peers, all airports, you can see our seats. We don't kind of keep up with the seats, but as far as throughputs, we always kind of do much better than the average as far as throughput. Same thing with our peers. Again, our throughput is higher than the average, and versus our peers, same size, our seats are actually up a little bit versus the average. For the month of October, we had a good month, 149K of positive net income, no cares, and we have been accruing for some of the things we talked about before, so it's a good month, and it was positive versus budget, so that's a good thing. Actually, I said that wrong. 192,000 actual versus 149 budget. Year to date, cruising along again, much better than budget. Almost $4 million ahead of budget. To almost 2.8 as far as net income, and again a lot of accruals in there, which we talked about yesterday. Try to keep things short when we have a good month, so. Keep that record going there. Again,
Love that chart. Love that chart.
This is our favorite chart here. 10 out of 10. That means each month this year, take out cares and miscellaneous income. That particular month was positive as far as net income. And again, here's our cash flow trending down a little bit as we talk about the budget, but some of that's planned with some of our projects. That number, even when we're starting from this year, and I'll talk about this a little bit when we talk about the budget, is higher than where we thought we would be at the end of last year. When we did last year's budget, we were higher than we were. We actually be about I think we budgeted to be about 210. And some of that is just because of better operating results and some of the other things. So even though we're trending down, we're still higher, even at 262 is higher than where we thought we would be at the end of 2024.
And it's a considerable part of the trending down in terms of the cash in 2025 is project-related, not
Project
operations-related.
related, right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Any questions? Again, we had a positive month. We talked about this in depth yesterday. And I'm trying to keep the record still in play.
Not today.
All right. Any questions? All right, thank you.
All right, do I have a motion to accept October financials? Jim? Justin? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any discussion? Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. John?
Okay, Todd?
All righty. Still up here again. And again, we went through this in depth yesterday. We asked a lot of questions. And that's really the time, because this is our budget, board, staff, something we feel good about. This is our plan for 2025. Again, we just talk off about our original kind of plan here as far as being fiscally responsible, strategic, and managing expectations. Again, all of our plans really focus on the fact that in 2026, there will be no more CARES, and we are strategically ahead of that, and we are on point as far as preparation for that point. Breaking it down, those goals, again, managing our resources, make sure safety is first, making sure we meet our debt service, and continuing to invest in our organization, people, and infrastructure. And this is just kind of breaking down the numbers. You can see total revenue is up about 4, and total expenses up about 4, budget to budget. Overall, nothing overly exciting here. We went into detail last year. Biggest difference probably, you can see our actual net income before depreciation is actually up a little bit from last year's budget, but the depreciation or continued investment in infrastructure drops that number down a little bit. That's why we're at 883, and as I pointed out yesterday, we were at 893, I believe, for the 2019 budget. So again, our goal is to not make as much profit, but to be self-sustaining, and we are doing that and managing all those goals. And this is kind of the where's the money go? 50% of our money is going to our employees. If you compare that to last year's budget, it was about 48% went to our employees. Now it's 50 cents of every dollar. The other number that went up a little bit was the debt service. And that last number is a number that actually went down. It was 5%, because if you pay more on the other things, whatever's left that we use for additional infrastructure obviously goes down. So everything we spend goes back into the organization, either on people, debt service, or infrastructure. There's no shareholders here, so we're just trying to manage our resources as best as possible. Breaking it down here as far as budget to budget, we're pretty close to where we were last year as far as full-time equivalents, even though we have some expansion from where we are on our current census.
But to run the operation, we're looking at that FTE equivalent, 166, 167 is our number.
Yes.
Okay. We don't,
Well, that's full-time, but the full-time equivalence is actually the 240.
oh, I'm sorry, 239.
240,
Yeah.
we're at 230, 31 the last
Yeah, I'm
payroll.
sorry, quoted
Yeah,
wrong.
no, right, but you get,
That's essentially full employment for us. We don't see a need that we'll need to grow beyond that number materially.
correct.
in
Not
the
unless
future
something
year
with the
two.
business changes
Right, that's a
dramatically, right?
And you can kind of see that, that's a great point, John, you can kind of see that why the 2024 budget and the 2025 are pretty close, because we're getting close to the point where, again, we've got some expansion to go, which is nice, and we're growing, and to John's point, you can never get to 240 right away, It's growing, it's like, hey, we've been growing steadily, but it's hard to get there overnight. So we're going in the right direction, but obviously, we're not at the 240, and it's always nice that you're not at your maximum number, so you have some wiggle room there, because obviously things never go quite as planned. And then breaking down our cash flow, and I mentioned earlier that, like I said, we're ahead of where we were, and some of that, it really boils down to Ryan's going to talk about our infrastructure, our investment in all those capital projects, that's really the biggest drain on our cash for multiple. Operationally, we're actually positive. It's just then we spend that money on infrastructure, the timing of that, and also the timing of the grants. Part of the reason that our number, we're actually up pretty good from last year, is last year we anticipated getting all that RACP money by the end of the year. We're anticipating getting it next year, so that could be a fluctuation in cash.
Might beat me to the chuckle.
Well, we're all can chuckle on that one, but, you know, it's built in there and timing of these things, but the biggest one from month to month is always going to be the infrastructure, the timing of the grants and when we pay them out. So that's really what, but overall, over a long period of time, we're still in a good place as far as cash. Any questions? Again, we went through this in depth yesterday, but I'm certainly here to answer any additional questions because this is, again, all of our budget. We're all signing off on this, that we are good with this, so I want to make sure everybody's comfortable with that.
And just for those that weren't part of the conversation yesterday, Ryan will be up in a couple of minutes to go through the capital improvement program. And we'll talk about some of the needs that we've got in 2025, that is the use of the cash that we talked about here. So we'll go through that in detail in a few minutes.
But again, it ties together. It's like that cash, what are you using it for? These are your operations, but it's really what's going to drain the cash most of the time is going to be those infrastructure and the timing of that, because we're making money on our operations, but we have to pay for it.
Is there any more capital intense business than airports and airlines? I honestly can't think of one.
I don't think so.
Good question.
There's
I
a lot of
haven't
stuff.
tripped over one recently, I'll tell you.
So, any other questions, concerns? All right.
Entertain a motion to approve the 2025 operating budget. Motion by Mike, second
I'll second that.
by Ricky. Any additional discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thank you, Todd. And then you're up with the schedule of rates and charges.
And all of our rates and charges are built into our budget, but this is a formal sheet that this kind of what we send out to the airlines. Our rates, as far as landing fees, are up approximately 3%. And then we have our apron that's up about 10, and then I think we're up about 4.5, 5 on the terminal from last year. So again, overall, it's just kind of highlighting all the things in the budget. There's a section in there, if you want to look through it, that goes through our rates and charges and how these were built, how they were kind of developed. And it's really kind of that costing that we talked about before. But this is just formalizing the rates and charges that we send out to the airlines. Any questions?
I have one I thought about yesterday. With the signatory and non-signatory obviously being different prices, what makes somebody want to stay non-signatory? Why wouldn't they? I'm assuming that's across the board at most airports. So like, why would an airline not sign on to save money?
I mean, they do have to your point, sign our airline use and lease agreement. And so if there's an airline that isn't interested in signing that agreement, they wouldn't need to sign, maybe if they had very minimal activity or operations. I don't know, Darren, if you have any other thoughts on that?
Right, I can say, well, first off, everybody here is signatory. Nobody is not, other than we have some of the charters and things that just pop in and out.
One of the cargo carriers is also.
But we did have for a while, one of the airlines wouldn't sign basically because they didn't agree with the rate-making methodology, and it was a principal thing to them.
They agreed to pay more?
They agreed, you know, because they didn't like the method, they didn't want to set a precedent with
Okay.
what the methodology was. They didn't like the way that we came together, and it was negotiated with all the airlines, and everybody agreed to it at the end, but they did not agree and decided not to sign. And eventually they did come around and sign, but I think that was just a sort of way to state their case that they didn't agree with the way we were coming up with the rates. Because there's a myriad of different ways to like figure out these charges and rates, and it took us, I don't know, 18 months of negotiations to come to something that the airlines could somewhat agree to.
So off of what you said, if they have minimal usage, is there a, if they sign on, is there a minimal, like, so it's $113.42 per square foot, right?
Sure.
Next to the 121. If they sign on, is there X amount of time that they have to be here to do that? Or if they land once a year here?
They can be a signatory
And
regardless.
land once a year and it would cost them that instead of costing them more?
Yeah.
Okay, I have no more questions.
I mean, but
I'm just confused.
But I think sometimes some folks don't actually think about it because they're not here that much. It's not on their radar. So if you have a relationship with us, obviously you're getting the signatory rate because you've signed them. But if you come in here once or twice a year, it's not worth it to you to sign, you know, because you're not here enough, it's not even on your radar,
I
but
got you. Just-
I don't know.
okay.
I don't have an answer for that, but yes,
Fair
that's
enough.
probably it.
All right, that's all I have.
Yes, go ahead. I'll get you in a minute, Paul, go ahead. Larry.
How do we compare with rates and charges to other airports?
Our rates for our size are, we had that benchmark and then we sent out periodically, we do that. Our rates are a little high. Even our cost per employment are high. That's part of the reason we subsidize our rates so much, to kind of
So
keep.
this is before subsidy,
No, this is after subsidies.
after subsidy.
Yeah, we talked about yesterday, we had that number, that was up, they were up significantly from there. So it's really about managing the cost and trying to keep them competitive. And people in this area do have other options. So Philly and Newark, so we try to keep our costs as best as we can, obviously. We can't give away the phone.
I had the same question as Larry, because we always measure ourselves against our peers.
Right.
I was just curious if we're in line or not.
Yeah, I think usually once a year, we try to provide that graphic when the FAA CATS data comes out. We'll do a report, how we benchmark against our peers.
Okay.
So we'll try to tee that up when that data is available.
I mean, we have the 2023, which we can share the next time. I think we sent it out, I think, a while ago, but, you know, 2024 is usually June, July before we get
That's
it.
fine.
And then as soon as we get it, we kind of, because that's actually where the cash flow information comes from, is part of that exhibit, that we benchmark ourselves against. But it's a great question. Again, it's, obviously, you can have a great airport, but if nobody pays for it, then it doesn't matter. So we got to balance that out. So any other questions?
Just when we do this report then next year and we update the schedule of charges, let's make sure we have the comparative data here.
Oh, yeah, okay, for
So
sure.
we just do it once a year when we do this.
Okay. And again, once we give it, we send out that full report, but we'll bring it back up again. Yeah, great point.
Just so this is, you said this is the rates after rebate,
After the subsidy.
after the subsidy.
Yes.
Yep.
Is that so what's the money we give back if we're gonna give it back at the end of the year? Is that?
No, so that's a great question. So what we do, for all intents and purposes, is we give a rate that's 538. They're supposed to pay for their costs. So if the costs are less, like obviously some of our costs are not as high, we give some of that back. So this is the budgeted, this is the
Based on budget
budgeted,
expenses.
budgeted expenses, but if the actual expenses are less, we give them back.
Got it.
Now, what we also do is we reduce that subsidy a little bit if it's not needed. This is kind of like maximum subsidy. If you don't need as much, we're gonna take some of that back, because obviously we need it as well, so. But it's a balance that we do every year. And it's part of our audit and everything else, we do the final expenses. Any other questions? Great questions. Any other questions? I know a couple of people weren't here yesterday, but. All right.
Entertain a motion to approve the rates and charges exhibit. So moved. Mike, second. Jimmy, any additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, Ryan, you're up with the capital improvement.
Great. John, afternoon, everybody. So, again, dovetailing what we talked about yesterday and really what Todd just presented, all of these numbers are tied into the budget, the cash flow, days cash on hand and so forth. But you can kind of see, this is our Exhibit A for our capital program for 2025. You can kind of see the 7 major projects, some different phases like we talked about with the runway, taxiway for cargo, 1331 work, roadway work, and then Queen City and Braden as well. But as we talked before, you can see the project cost versus the LNAA share, and obviously the difference is the grant funding, which again, as Todd mentioned, plays into the timing of the cash flow month over month.
Ryan, can I just ask a question on that first slide, please?
Right.
Item 3C, is that the cargo facility?
Yep.
Right, so we're kind of like getting the apron ready and the access roads before we do the building. Is that?
Yeah, so basically we're working through the taxiway delta, which is the 3A, is the taxiway portion, and then 3C includes the apron, the access road, the vehicle service road, and then working with the developer, they're doing the building,
Right.
building docks,
So they're
parking lots.
So we're getting everything ready to the building for right now.
Right, and it's, so we won't pay for the building.
Okay.
Right, so some of,
And then the 3C is federally funded,
Correct.
right? Okay.
yes.
Yeah, it's part of the infra piece. And-
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And some of those throughout next year, we'll kind of hone in on some of those costs and details as the project progresses. Yep, so that's what that one is. Then moving down Exhibit A, we then go into our major non-grant projects. So again, we talked a lot yesterday. This is, again, the 9.407 is all LNAA funded cash. Again, based on a lot of our priorities and discussions of, strategic plans of timing for rehabilitating what we have, again, growing our business in some areas that has a demand, like parking as an example, but then also making necessary repairs on our existing infrastructure and pavement, 1.5 million for some of those comprehensive paving projects we've talked about. So, again, have all those in there. Kind of, again, we talked a little about that yesterday. Working down Exhibit A as well, 2.75 for kind of the cumulative departmental expenses with some of the vehicles, called smaller equipment, but really just purchasing, obviously, which has a cost to it. And then we talked about, again, that line 23 is really just a timing on expenses that we've already spent in 2024, but getting reimbursed in 2025, again, as part of that timing. So really, again, you see at the bottom that cash needed, the 14.4, is what's built into the budget, cash flow, days cash on hand. So, and then again, as we kind of talked about with the departmental projects, a little bit less than last year, but two of them equate for 1.4 million of that number. So again, just balancing the major projects with the departmental projects. I believe that's all I have. Happy to answer any more questions.
Entertain a motion to approve the capital improvement program.
So moved.
Motion by Frank, second by Larry. Discussion and questions. Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Ryan, thank you. Todd, thank you as well.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the hazard mitigation plan resolution. Colin will come forward with that, please.
Good afternoon. The 2024 Lehigh Valley Hazard Mitigation Plan has been completed by Lehigh County Emergency Services as well as the Northampton County Emergency Management Department. And the difference between this mitigation plan and previous ones is instead of us being just a stakeholder, we now have our own annex. And I want to commend Jennifer Bogari, our emergency manager, Steve Connors, Director of Operations and Safety, Ryan, myself also sat in on this collaborative effort to identify different mitigation efforts that we can do here at the Airport Authority in order to, again, meet what they're trying to accomplish within their mitigation plan. Now, not just the LNAA, but also Lehigh Valley Planning Commission and Lehigh County Authority are now also bringing annexes. Really, the important piece of this is that the resolution that will be signed by the chair would allow our annex, again, to be part of this mitigation resolution and plan, and it will let us have access to those funding buckets. So when those funding dollars become available at the federal level, the immediate thing is, are we eligible? By being an annex within the mitigation plan, the Airport Authority would now be eligible for those dollars. And for somebody from the governmental side, that is so critical when we're looking to do certain projects here for the airport to be able to, again, access that money. So, again, this is the first time we'll be, again, part of an annex within the mitigation plan. So what we're recommending is that we adopt the hazard mitigation plan of Lehigh Valley as our mitigation plan here at the LNAA, and it also advises that any of the staff members here are able to implement this mitigation plan when we need to.
Questions for Colin?
Yes, sir.
So if you could just scroll down just a little bit, please.
Yep.
Talks about the three authorities. So LVPC, they're really not an authority.
No.
Right. So the authorities would just be.
Would it be, yes, the Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority. There are three regional organizations that are part of it. So we have the two authorities and then the planning commission.
Right, we have three authorities
Yes.
up there. I kind of got
Yes.
hung up on LVPC.
Yes, so the planning commission as well as the other two authorities.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Colin? Seeing
Yeah,
none?
just a quick question,
Yes.
Colin.
Yes.
Is there a reason that Northampton is not included, or are they encompassed under one of those other umbrellas?
It's both. It's Lehigh County Emergency Services as well as the Northampton County Emergency Management Services.
Oh,
It's a Lehigh Valley Hazard Mitigation Plan.
okay.
Yeah,
But
it's
they
for
don't
Lehigh
have
Valley.
authority that would fall
Yes.
under that other part.
Yes,
Okay, great, thanks.
sure.
Any other questions? Seeing none, take a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second? Justin, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next on the agenda, the approval of the hotel ground lease. Darren?
Thank you. I'm gonna open that. So we talked about this yesterday in quite a bit of detail, so we're gonna certainly short it up a bit today. Also, in Novus, there was a lease summary. Hopefully you guys had a chance to look at that, a construction schedule or term sheet that we signed previously, plus the First Amendment. Was all in there. So I just took the summary and kind of summarized it a little bit more, but just hit the high points here. It is important that these are consistent with the term sheet that you all approved in the past. So this is Providence Group Lehigh Valley Properties LLC. That's what we've been talking about for quite some time now. It's about a little over 5-acre site. We'll actually get a little over an acre back that we'll be able to use for overflow parking, rental car parking, honestly anything we want, but more than likely we'll be parking of some sort. It's a Courtyard Marriott, pretty excited about that, good product. Planning for a 145-room hotel, 40-year lease with 1 9-year extension. The important part on the lease is it does terminate when the bonds are paid off, so it could actually happen before 40 years. And we also have the ability after year 12 to pay off the bonds and terminate that lease if we so chose to do so. They have up to 2 years after the final permit date for construction. At this point, if everything is approved, closing happens in a couple of weeks. They're planning to break ground January timeframe and finish somewhere in Q4 of 2026. We're able to assign the lease if we needed to. Unlikely that we probably would. Provident can't assign unless they have our permission. As with all our leases, it includes some pretty strong indemnification language. Insurance coverages are pretty standard and have been reviewed by our insurance broker. We are contributing $1 million RACP grant that we've already been awarded. We haven't executed that yet. Once we execute it, we have 5 years to use that grant, those grant funds. We've talked a lot about these hotel committees over the last couple of years. There's an operating committee, which will have a majority of the seats on. That's sort of the day-to-day operations of the hotel, and then the governing committee, which we will have one representative on that. Any questions here?
Any question for Darren?
I got a couple more. I just figured I'd stop there quick, but just on the rent, you can see there the first 10 years of rent is set. A little odd that we get a lot more in the first 2 years, but that was basically just negotiated because we originally thought we were going to put about $500,000 of cash into the deal, so we were trying to get that back out early in the lease. So after 10 years, we basically will do an appraisal, reset it to CPI, or fair market value, and then escalate by CPI from there. We also have the hotel privilege fee, which is the $3 per occupied room night. That increases every 5 years by 75 cents, and it does the same type of reset every 10 years. Pictures. I think it's a great product. I think it's going really good out front. A little bit on the inside there, the common area in the bar, and the guest rooms. And happy to answer any questions. Like I said, we did spend quite a bit of time yesterday, so I know I went through pretty quickly here, but certainly still happy to answer questions if there are some.
Seeing no questions, I'll take a motion for approval of the lease.
So moved.
Mike, second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have it.
Thank you.
Okay, Tom?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Todd went through traffic again for October. Hurricane Milton, little impact there between October 8th and the 13th. We lost about 4,000 scheduled seats, so that affects the numbers a little bit. On the plus side, we saw cargo grew about 3.5% October over October. So taking a look nationally at throughput through our checkpoints for November so far, checkpoints are down about 1.5% for November over last November. Here at ABE, we're pretty well flat, so kind of a little bit above that trend. When we look at December, however, scheduled airline seats are up 17.5% at ABE versus 2.5% nationally. So we're really seeing seats come back in December. In terms of what happened since our last scheduled board meeting, October 29th, on November 1st, we participated at the George Wolfe Elementary School in Northampton Area School District, their career day, so we were there for that. On November 7th, we had a little ticket giveaway at the Chamber's annual meeting. Great job, Frank, on that event. as always. November 13th, we participated at the Lehigh Valley Academy Regional Charter Schools Career Day, so trying to get our way around the Valley's career days and talk about aviation airport careers. On November 14th, to Sherman's happiness, we opened our pet relief area. Thank you to Leader of the Pack Canine Institute as a sponsor for that area. I think it's serving us very well. November 20th, we attended the Community Action Committee of Lehigh Valley's annual meeting, so great job to Dawn, who's on the line there for that event. And November 18th through the 22nd, the Airport Authority had FAA inspectors here looking at de-icing, fueling, maintenance of aircraft, also hazmat. So really a review of sort of our airline services and aviation services teams at the FBO and all of the practices and procedures we have in place. Zero findings, so congrats, big congrats to Connie, Darren, the FBO, the airline services team. Well done on a great audit. And then kind of looking ahead, December 1st through the 31st, our 28th annual Festival of Trees. You're seeing some of them in the terminal already. 16 local schools are decorating those. December 2nd through the 13th, I know Ryan mentioned this yesterday, but worth remembering that our short-term parking lot is going to be closed for a little bit of pre-construction survey work. So short-term lot will be closed in that window after Thanksgiving, before Christmas holiday rush. So get in and get out quickly. December 7th, we're having our 8th annual Shop with an Airport Cop, and that'll be benefiting 17 children from Catasauqua Area School District. So again, great event, looking forward to that. December 14th is our North Pole charity flight, and that we're partnering with SkyWest for United Airlines here. 15 families from Miracle League of the Lehigh Valley are going to benefit from that. December 13th, 16th, and 18th is our holiday concert series. So we'll have Emmaus High School, we'll have Deeriff, and we'll also have Whitehall High School. Their choral groups here performing in the terminal, which is always wonderful for passengers to hear. Foreshadowing ahead into January is our next Fear of Flying seminar on January 8th, so you can sign up for that already. That's on flyav.com. And last but not least, Mr. Chair, no scheduled meetings for December. Our next scheduled meetings in January will be on the 23rd for committees and the 28th for board. Now, the 28th will not be noon. It will be at 9 a.m. because we're trying to coordinate with the Chamber's Economic Outlook. We're coming. Yeah. So we want to make sure we can do all that. And the last thing I'll add is, since we won't see you, happy holidays to everyone. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Tom? Yes.
How many, do you go to other schools for Career Day?
We do.
Do you do like the workforce investment, those career days, career link stuff?
Colin, Workforce Investment Board and all of those career days.
Yeah, James, we're continuing to work with different school districts around the area and continuing to work for the workforce. That's one of the big things coming up in 2025. We're working with a lot of OTECs, a lot of school districts around the area to build the aviation education. There's really a big push in the Commonwealth to bring aviation into classrooms, and zip codes where people are getting education funding in order to build it. So we continue to work with all different school districts, meeting them, bringing them on the airfield. So we'll continue to do that, and I'll definitely provide an update coming up in January, what we're doing from education outreach. Yep.
Okay.
Madam Solicitor, are you there?
I am here. Good afternoon, everyone. For the legal services report, just ongoing projects. One notable item is that we're working on a potential solar lease. So there'd be a leaseholder who would develop a solar project on some of the land near the airport that's currently under ag leases. So there'd be a period of time where that entity could explore whether it's feasible. So we're working on some terms for that, and reaching an agreement regarding the FedEx cargo ramp lease. That's just a renewal. There were some discussions about terms there. And then as far as an update on the connector project, I'd like to discuss that in executive session.
Okay, so we will entertain a motion to move to executive session.
So moved.
Second, thank you. Members of the board, any new business? Seeing none, I want to wish.
Wait, I do want to ask something, please. This is Dawn.
Okay,
There
Dawn.
were stories in the last couple of days on the news about, I think 50 cars were stolen from Newark Airport. Have we had any stolen from our airport? And is there anything in place to be sure that something like that doesn't happen?
So our police department handles any type of criminal activity on the airport. Over the years, we've dealt with some issues with rental car theft. I can't say that we've seen any particular uptick of activity. There's really no change there, but we do have many procedures in place to protect their vehicles as well as customer vehicles.
It doesn't look like there's any cars missing out there.
You can tell that, Frank?
It's,
Okay.
the joint's jumping.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to ask.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Jim?
So with the Allegiant possibly going on strike, did they settle that or where?
I haven't seen an update in the last day or two. I'm sorry?
Is there anything we're looking at in case they do go on strike? We have a lot of Allegiant flights.
We do have a lot of Allegiant flights, and really this is an Allegiant issue. So we're staying in touch with Allegiant Corporate on that. At this point, they're continuing to negotiate, so that's all we know in terms of their process, but there is definitely a process to it because that all falls under the mediation board. So we'll continue to keep the board apprised if we get.
Delta is striking. Did I see that today somewhere?
So there is some news on American that I read.
Maybe it's American.
Yeah. Down in Charlotte, but that at this point hasn't affected anything happening.
It's Charlotte, just at that airport.
Just at Charlotte, correct.
Just at the airport.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for new business? Okay, seeing none, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. As we say from Easton, B. P. Burke on Thanksgiving Day. And since we're not meeting in December, everyone have a joyous holiday season, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Larry
motion.
There you go.
Larry the motion to adjourn.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
You too.
Okay. No record today, Glenn, sorry.
No.